Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Collin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Dan Sahar. He's the co-founder and CPO over at Guidde, and we're going to talk about product market fit. Before we jump in, this episode's brought to you by the Predictable Revenue Founder Coaching Program. Founders, let's be real. Scaling a company is tough. You're juggling product, revenue, hiring, and a million other things. But what if you had a proven framework and expert guidance to help you navigate the chaos? That's where our founder coaching program comes in. Whether you're finding your first customers or fine-tuning your go-to-market strategy, we've got a coach that can help. Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them so you can build it yourself. Now to the episode. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Colin. Great being here.
I'm excited to have you on. I've actually used Guidde before, and I really enjoyed it. I think I used it to solve a very specific job to be done for my company, and then I passed it off to both a customer and my internal team. And so I'm excited to hear the story of where it came from, because I think it's one of those things that nearly every founder has probably run into, which is, hey, how do you do that? And you got to replicate the process, and it's a huge pain in the butt. So I'm really curious, where did this idea come from?
So the idea originally came from both myself and my co-founder Yoav were heads of product at previous startups, and one of the things that we've suffered from was that how to get our users, our customers, to adopt whatever we're building, make use of and learn of new functionality that we're introducing. That was we build stuff. Then at the end, maybe I was in cybersecurity at the time, I built a ton of dashboard and nobody is even know that they're there. And how do you float that in front of the customers? And then on top of that, obviously every organization in the world there has this hey, Colin, do you remember how to do that expense report in Concur? Well, I don't remember. I need to ask this. So that happens probably thousands of times a day, pretty much in every company around the world. Software is growing, there's more and more software, and we've used various adoption tools in our products, tools like WalkMe or Pendo. They didn't work. It was we tried them all and it wasn't effective for what we were trying to accomplish. So we said, look, we think there's a better way to solve that. My previous startup was around video. So we said video, that's the closest way probably to take a crack at this problem. So we build a video company, but centered around this software usage adoption problem.
And so walk me through the decision to go from, you realize there's a gap in the space between, what exists out there to, how you validated it. And what was your process for making the decision that this is the next thing that I want to dedicate my time to?
So I think for me, this is my second venture-backed company. Venture-backed, it's not for everyone, you shouldn't do it if it's not going to be something that you think has the potential to make a big dent, tackle a very large problem or very large market. So that's that was question number one that we asked ourselves. And we said, look, software SaaS adoption is not going to decrease anytime soon. These days, we see an even bigger problem, which is AI adoption. Organizations are going to have to teach pretty much every employee how to work with these new tools. So it's an even bigger problem than what we thought 4 years ago. So it's big. Let's go tackle it. That was one thing. Then you start to zoom in on the actual problem. Who's really going to pay for it? Who's suffering the most and is willing to do something about it? That's the hard part. And it takes a lot of cycles until you find the answer. Sometimes you never find the answer to that problem, but sometimes you do.
100%. I'd love to understand, who were your first folks that had just enough pain to give you some money for Guidde? And how did you find them? What was your process?
So the initial thesis that we had was it was going to be live video, which is I have a software problem. We had this crazy idea that there's Uber, there's drivers. I have a problem on Excel. There must be someone around the world that knows how to solve this problem on Excel.
I love that.
So we'll build a marketplace for SaaS experts, and they'll be able to, you click a button, somebody jumps on a Zoom call like this and answer. Not a bad idea, I think. Really tough to make it work. So we started with that. And then people told us, nah, ditch that. There's not going to be anybody on the other. It's a two-sided marketplace. It's not going to work. Maybe somebody else can do it, not us. So then we did probably 70 to 80, maybe even more interviews with various personas that we believed could be the ones that own this problem. I think one of the lessons from that was Don't talk to too many roles. Talk to one. Do it many, many times until you know whether they're the ones or just move on to the next one, but don't spread out. And we went to either people that we knew or people that we knew that introduced us to. It was mostly the latter. And that's where we found our first customer. We showed them prototype mock. It wasn't even a working product. It was like, presentation. Said, yeah,
Mhm.
I want this. We told them, yeah, okay, you'll have it. And started to build it right away, pretty much like before we.
That's awesome. So you started with 80 initial conversations. You went really wide. How did you get to that? Like you did 80. How many of them were in that vertical? And then were you hearing from them that made you say, yeah, these are the folks?
We had, I think, almost 10 design partners. They're not all in the same bucket. Like there were different, we didn't know what's going to be the kind of like the smoothest ride. I think one thing we did with all of them was we had a price tag. It was like, if it's free, yeah, back then, 2021, 22, yeah, come on, I'll try whatever you got.
Yeah.
So we said, look, we gotta charge for it to see if it's for real. And some of them ended up being like our first customers, like both enterprises and agencies. But we ended up later on pivoting. There's like a content creation side, and then there's a content delivery side that you probably don't use. We started by building both of them,
Mm.
but then neither of them was good enough. It was like, at the quality level of
Yeah.
what they're supposed to do. So at some point we said, look, we will double down on just one, but pick just one. And it was the creation side, because the delivery side, like the ability to consume content, doesn't work if you don't have content.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we ended up kind of like narrowing only into the creation side, which is what got us really into the market well. And
Hmm.
then in the last year, we've added back the consumption side as well. But it wasn't like we opened up with a big kind of like product vision, narrowed it down.
Yeah.
Now we're back at the wide vision again.
I imagine you'd done more than kind of 80 by the time you were trying to narrow the focus. What did that process look like? Was it more interviews? Was it, let's see how many people we can get to pay for this? Like, how did you make that decision?
It was like multiple data points. It was interviews. I think in all those design partners and customers, we kept on talking to them. We kept on seeing like what's working, what they don't like. And then I think ultimately we saw that the creation problem is big. It's like they're running into walls there, not just with us, like with other tools. There's a quote, I think, from Keith Robois. He's saying, like, take a fragmented industry where people are using like a lot of different tools and just like vertically integrate them. So we saw in video, it was like, okay, I'm going to record on like the QuickTime on the Mac, and then I'll pass it on to Camtasia, like a desktop tool that I've used
Yeah.
like 25 years ago. And then I'm going to
Yeah.
take that, and then only experts know how to use Camtasia. So it's only like 3 people in the company can create that. And then I'm going to pass it on to a hosting platform that is owned by the marketing team that I'm not even a member of. And then they're going to approve it. So it's like a lot of like handing four or five different tools and handovers from one to the other. All we need to do is really, bring them together. We said, let's do this. We see this. I mean, we see ourselves struggling with it.
Hmm.
Everybody else must be as well.
You're bringing me back to all the times where I started recording something on QuickTime, then I ripped it into Handbrake and I meant to add something to it and upload it to Wistia and then never followed through on that because it was easy enough to like make the recording, but not so easy to like edit it. And like I had great intentions that just died midstream because there's too many different tools, there's too many different steps. It was too easy
Yeah.
to fall out of that process. So I love that you priced your beta. How did you come up with that initial price?
I think in the beginning, it was mostly about just like doing competitive analysis-based pricing. Kind of like you take a stab at it based on, you say, look, if they're paying Wistia X and they're paying Camtasia Y and Loom Z, we can maybe find like a middle ground between all of them that sounds right. And I think one of the things that we tried, I'm not sure if it's the right approach, is just to say, well, let's start high. We can then lower the price. But to do the inverse would be, they'll tell us if it's too expensive, or we'll see that there's a problem there.
It's much easier. I've always found it much easier to go lower than it is to raise the price higher.
Yeah.
What did you learn in the process of coming up with that price?
I think pricing is like, it is sort of an art. You have my co-founder and myself that have dealt with pricing many times. So it's sort of like you have to feel it. I've talked to other leaders. There's like, Stuart Butterfield, Slack founder. He invented the pricing. He never sold to enterprise before. And he just came
Yeah.
up with the pricing. That's what they did. And they have some genius stuff there. But then there's other companies like Airtable that they brought in consultants like to do their pricing and they got pretty much to the same result. So I think the biggest realization that we had was customers read everything that you have on the pricing table. So it's every word counts in there, and you have to have someone that's very diligent in making sure you put the stuff that matters in the pricing table, and it's like sticks and carrots to navigate people to the higher tier packages, which is not trivial to do.
100%. Coming back to those first customers, were the first people that paid you from both cohorts introductions from your network?
Our first set of customers were not direct people that we knew. It was people that we knew introduced us to them.
Yeah.
Our biggest, I think, discovery of true product market fit didn't happen then. It was later on, about a year after that, we did a product hunt launch on just the create side, just the guide creation platform. And that's where it's kind of like put us in front of many people that we never spoke with. And it forced us, one, we saw demand. So we said, oh, we're onto something. We see this is working. And then it forced us to also it opened us to various types of personas. It helped us find the really precise person or roles in the company that our solution works the best for. Like we opened the wide net, we cast a wide net, and through that wide net, we found almost by accident a few ICPs are carrying with us to this day, and like we have a really tight fit for them.
Amazing. Can you talk a little bit about what you found?
So I think like in content, there's various types of almost like fidelities and nuances on what you're trying to produce. And we found like there's a lot of more instructional content that is focused around software, around methodologies that has a certain look and feel. And it has like certain qualities that are expected of it. And we basically built a solution that is tailored for that type of content. And who's making that content? There's like 4 or 5 teams in an organization that make it. So we kind of like tuned our creation methodology specifically for that flow, like how they made it in the first place, and then for the end look and feel that they would like to get. A lot of the things came from them. Like so, we found it. And by the way, on that we mentioned you and I like before going live, Intercom. Intercom was an amazing source for us to find that. Like it was like customers. We have it to this day inside our product, and they just say, "Hey, can I do this?" And we said, "Man, that's a cool feature," and add it to the roadmap. It's worked really well.
That's incredible. If I were to summarize the story up to this point, it sounds like you initially started too wide in your customer development interviews. You started too wide with the platform, kind of taking on both sides. Then you came across a couple of customers that really helped you narrow in, and you became really good at that very narrow single feature type product. And then once you got really good at that, you put your energy into launching on Product Hunt, which increased the surface area for luck to find these other folks that needed that specific type of job to be done.
Yeah, that's a good description. I can say that like when we started wide, we started with enterprises in mind. We built enterprise features way too soon, but now like years, like we are glad that we have them. And
I've talked to so many founders that put so much stock into their Product Hunt launch, and I haven't talked to too many that have got pretty like really strong returns like you have. What do you think got you a different result than most people?
I think Product Hunt is not for every type of one. Like there's things that you need something that the audience there, they can put it to use, and it's got to be super easy to use. So it's got to be something that boom, like within 2 minutes, good or bad, and it makes sense. If you don't have that, don't bother doing Product Hunt. I think we have a really simple product to use, and there we found good audience there, made it work.
So first customers came from your customer development process, and then the next kind of set of customers were maybe some referrals, but the next big cohort was this Product Hunt launch.
Exactly.
Then after Product Hunt, how did things change?
So it was like a freemium product, but it was a paid product. I think our next hop after that, we've had some virality and like we've had like to this day, like most of our traffic is inbound. So what we learned is both the personas that we fit the best for. That was one learning. The second was what are the type of organizations that this really works for them? And we got a lot of very large enterprises inbound into the platform. So we said, man, we got really large enterprises. That's a great thing for startups if you can go at enterprises and then luckily, like my previous company and Yoav's previous company, we sold to enterprises. So we knew how to do
Mhm.
that. That was like, we know how to do that.
Perfect.
Like, so let's craft a sales motion, how to incorporate sales reps into the mix, identify like the handover point, like from PLG, they start using it. You have like captive audience. They know what it is, and then how to incorporate sales into the mix. That took
Mhm.
us not too long, honestly, like to develop that maneuver. We found a real thing, and then it's just about like execution, I think, from that point.
I love that. I want to follow up on that moment in a sec, but I'm curious, what moment, how did you decide when the right moment was to inject sales? What was your kind of, did you have a core metric that you followed or was there something that they had to hit in order for you to trigger that?
I think it was almost automatic, like in our thought process. Like we do a lot of planning on the HR structure of the company. It's something that we've had in other companies that we worked at, and we had a placeholder for a head of sales, and it happened to be at the right time, but we weren't waiting for a trigger. Like a year before, we said like this is like Q4, we're going to bring somebody to head sales. It was good.
That's pretty good forecasting. Talk to me about that moment where you realized, hey, there's something special here.
So I think it was a few good signals that I don't think you ever know you have perfect product market fit, but it's kind of a feeling. So I think
Mhm.
for us, it was we're getting a lot of positive reaction on our intercom chat from customers. I love this product, and that's nice to hear. It doesn't often happen. Our support team and success team were great. Like also we got a lot of to this day like great compliments on that. And for me, it was the type, like I said, the logos that we were getting. Once you get like a company like Bayer Pharmaceuticals, like they have, I think, 200,000 employees worldwide. You get it and you say, maybe this is an anomaly. And then you start getting more of that type. And after like five, this looks real. It's not because we're not going at them, they're coming at us.
Mhm.
There's something there. Like it's not a fake thing. Once you realize that, I think it's like it's not it doesn't last forever. It's
Mhm.
like that's like you ask about like triggers. I think if you feel that like the pull,
Mhm.
that's like time to increase speed.
It seems like the product itself has some natural virality kind of built into it because by definition you were sharing. Would you attribute that to how quickly it spread and the fact that so many of these big brands were inbounding to you, or was there something else?
There's products like Loom that have a viral like when it first launched, it was like, oh man, this is cool. I want to try this
Mhm.
out myself. Our product is not exactly of that type. I think it's more of like it's super easy to do this thing. It was more of like the word of mouth.
I'm curious what comes next for Guide.
So we believe there is like a big, I think startups, you cannot create waves. You have to ride waves that somebody else, either the universe or, OpenAI built. So our wave is AI, obviously, but it's more AI adoption. I think like there is every organization in the company and almost every department in every company in the world is going to have to go through educational process of how do we work with these new tools? How do we work in the age of AI? Everybody's adopting AI and existing software vendors like a Salesforce bolts on AI functionality like Agentforce and Copilot in Microsoft. You're going to need to train every employee in the world on how to use that software, how to use AI. So who's going to do it? And what's the best medium to do it? Unsolved questions, I think. And we think it's like that's a big kind of like a C-level, CEO level boardroom discussion that I'm sure is happening in many companies in the world. That's a big wave. And now our task is to figure out like what's our role in that big wave. We have a plan, like we want to be that kind of like shepherd to help organizations educate and train their employees to use AI in a proper way. And we
Mhm.
want to own that. So that's kind of like our high level roadmap. And there's going to be a lot of interesting developments on that front.
I think I want to end with one last question, which is it seems like the case study of Guide is one of simplicity. You all read the book Don't Make Me Think and just internalize that. If there are startups listening, founders listening that are currently sitting there after talking to a bunch of customers and they're trying to decide, we've got all of these things that we want to build. How do we narrow down and pick that one thing to replicate what you did? What advice would you have for them?
Thing is like do less. but do it good. Like that's about it. Like less features, but do the ones that you're doing, just, crush them. And then figure out like if they're proper, if somebody needs them. If not, maybe dump them and go on to the
Mhm.
next one. But just like don't think that you can just build 100 features and one of them is going to stick. Probably that's not going to work.
Love it. Dan, if people want to learn more about Guide, try out the tool, what's the best way for them to find out
So they
more?
can go to guide.com, like with guide with two D's, or if they have any want to chat with me, have any questions, I'm happy to answer and jump on a Zoom with anybody. And at guide.com, feel free to do that. And let's see, hopefully I'll be able to answer and maybe lend some not stupid advice.
I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing the Guide journey.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll catch y'all next time.